The great meeting hall of the Galactic Council was filled with strange sounds. Aliens from dozens of worlds were laughing so hard that some were falling off their floating chairs. The reason for all this laughter was simple. Earth wanted to join their club. Ambassador Zixtal stood at the center of the huge room. He was from the Hegemony, one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. His blue skin glowed as he held up a datapad showing pictures of Earth. The pictures showed humans doing what the aliens thought were very silly things. "Look at this," Zixtal said, pointing to a picture of humans playing football. "They chase a ball around a field and crash into each other. They call this sport and millions watch it on screens." The room erupted in more laughter. A creature that looked like a giant spider clapped all 8 of its hands together. Another alien that was basically a floating brain in a jar made bubbling sounds that meant it was very amused. Zixtal showed another picture. This one was of a human walking a small dog on a leash. They keep these tiny wolves as pets and clean up their waste. The humans follow the animals around and pick up their droppings with plastic bags. Even the usually serious Krodan military officers were chuckling. The Krodans were huge, gray-skinned warriors who had conquered half the galaxy. If they thought something was funny, it had to be really ridiculous. "But wait, there's more," Zixtal continued. He showed images of human wars. These creatures fight each other over imaginary lines drawn on maps. They have something called countries, and they kill each other to protect these invisible borders. In their most recent big war, they killed over 50 million of their own kind. The laughter got quieter. Even for aliens who had seen many strange things, this level of self-destruction seemed crazy. "And here's the best part," Zixtal said with a grin that showed his sharp teeth. "They've been around for about 200,000 years, but they only learned to fly between stars 50 years ago. Most species figure out space travel in their first 1,000 years of civilization." A tall, elegant alien from Vega Prime raised her hand. "Didn't they also split their own atoms to make weapons? And then point those weapons at themselves?" "Yes," Zixtal laughed. "They call them nuclear weapons, and they made enough to destroy their own planet several times over. They spent decades threatening to use them on each other. Some of them are still pointed at their own cities." The council members looked at each other and shook their heads. How could any species be so stupid and still survive? In the back of the room, a quiet alien named Whisper was not laughing. Whisper's people were known for being very good at watching and listening. They noticed things that others missed. Right now, Whisper was looking at some strange numbers on his private screen. The numbers showed energy readings from the edge of their solar system. Something was moving very fast toward their planet, something that shouldn't exist according to everything they knew about space travel. But Whisper didn't say anything. He was too busy trying to figure out what he was seeing. Far away from the laughing aliens, Captain Sarah Chen was sitting in the command chair of her ship. The ship was called Determination, and it was humanity's first vessel designed to travel between stars. Sarah was a calm woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had been chosen for this mission because she was smart, brave, and good at staying cool under pressure. "Status report," Sarah said to her crew. "We're 3 days into Andromedian space, Captain," replied Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. "We've passed 17 of their warning beacons without being detected." Sarah smiled. The Andromedians were famous for being paranoid about security. Their home system was supposed to be impossible to enter without permission. But here, they were flying right through it like it was empty space. "Any response to our messages?" Sarah asked. "Nothing yet, Captain," said Communications Officer Park. "They probably think we're some kind of mistake in their sensors." Sarah looked at the main screen, which showed the beautiful blue-green world of Andromeda's Prime ahead of them. Around the planet, she could see hundreds of defensive satellites and space stations. The Andromedians had built their defenses over thousands of years. Every weapon system was designed to stop any possible attack. What they hadn't planned for was someone who wasn't trying to attack at all. "Arya, how many defensive platforms do you count?" Sarah asked the ship's artificial intelligence. 847 active defense platforms, Captain," Arya replied in her pleasant voice. "Also 612 sensor stations, 203 communication relays, and 47 mobile patrol units." Sarah nodded. Arya had been cataloging everything they saw during their journey. Every frequency, every weapon signature, every piece of technology. The information would be very useful for future human ships. Open a channel to the planet, Sarah ordered. Back in the council chambers, the laughter was starting to die down. Zixtal was wrapping up his presentation about humanity's application to join the galactic community. In conclusion, he said, I recommend we send the humans a polite rejection letter. Maybe in a few thousand years, when they've learned not to kill each other over invisible lines, we can reconsider. That's when every alarm in the building started going off. The massive screens around the room lit up with emergency messages. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The alien stopped laughing and started looking very worried. What's happening? Demanded Admiral Korath, the leader of the Krodan military forces. A technician's voice came over the speakers, sounding very scared. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown vessel. They claim to be from Earth. They're in orbit around Andromeda's Prime. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. That's impossible, whispered the vegan representative. No one can get past Andromedian defenses. The main screen flickered and suddenly showed the face of a human woman. She had calm, dark eyes and was wearing what looked like a military uniform. This is Captain Sarah Chen of Earth's first diplomatic vessel, Determination, the woman said, in a clear, confident voice. We're currently in orbit around your homeworld of Andromeda's Prime. I have to say, you have a lovely planet. And those defensive satellites you have, we counted 847 of them on our way in. Very impressive. The council members stared at the screen in shock. The Andromedian ambassador, a tall being covered in silver scales, made a choking sound and fell over. We're here to discuss Earth's application for membership in the galactic community, Captain Chen continued. I understand there was some doubt about humanity's readiness to join galactic civilization. We're here to clear up any misunderstandings. Admiral Korath found his voice first. How did you get past our defenses? Captain Chen smiled. It wasn't a mean smile, but it wasn't entirely friendly either. We knocked. And with that simple statement, everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about humans changed forever. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council happened faster than anyone thought possible. Within 6 hours, representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had gathered. Some came in person, others appeared as holograms, but everyone was there. They all wanted answers to the same question. How had a human ship gotten past the best defenses in known space? Admiral Korath paced back and forth in front of the massive conference table. His gray skin was darker than usual, which meant he was very angry or very worried, probably both. The Krodans had been the galaxy's military experts for over 3 million years. They had fought every kind of enemy imaginable. They knew every trick, every strategy, every possible way to attack or defend, but they had no idea how the humans had done what they did. Explain it to me again, Korath growled at the Andromedian defense minister. The Andromedian, whose name was hard for most species to pronounce, was shaking. His silver scales were pale with fear. There's nothing to explain, Admiral. Our sensors show no signs of intrusion. According to our systems, no unauthorized ship has entered our space in the last month. But we can see the human ship right there. Korath pointed at the big screen showing the human vessel orbiting Andromeda's Prime. Yes, sir. We can see it now. But our recordings show empty space until the moment they started talking to us. Whisper, the quiet alien from the back of the room, finally spoke up. I detected unusual energy readings 3 days ago, but the patterns didn't match any known technology. Everyone turned to look at him. Whisper's people were known for having the best sensors in the galaxy. If they couldn't identify something, it was either completely new or so advanced that they couldn't understand it. What kind of energy readings? Asked Dr. Mella, the galaxy's leading expert on space travel technology. The readings suggested movement at faster-than-light speeds, but without any of the normal signatures we expect. No quantum tunnel formation, no space-time distortion, no dimensional shifting. The energy pattern was elegant, simple, like someone had found a much easier way to travel between stars. The room fell quiet. Every species had their own method of faster-than-light travel. but they all involved massive amounts of energy and complex physics. The idea that there might be a simpler way was both exciting and terrifying. "We need to know more about these humans," said Ambassador Vex from the Centauri Alliance. "Perhaps we should invite them to present their application properly." That's when the main screen activated again. Captain Chen appeared, looking just as calm as before. "Good day, honored representatives," she said. "I hope you don't mind the interruption, but we've been monitoring your communications. We understand you have some questions about our technology." Admiral Korath stepped forward. "Captain Chen, how did your ship penetrate Andromedian defenses without detection?" Chen smiled. "We used a technique that your scientists probably haven't discovered yet. We call it polite space travel. Instead of forcing our way through space-time like most FTL drives do, we simply asked the universe nicely if we could move a bit faster." The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Asking the universe, what did that even mean? "I think I should let our xenobiology expert explain things better," Chen said. "Dr. Vasquez, could you join us?" The screen split to show another human. This one was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She was holding what looked like a simple data pad. "Hello, everyone," Dr. Elena Vasquez said with a warm smile. "I'm Earth's chief xenobiologist. I'm here to present humanity's application for membership in the galactic community." She activated her data pad, and suddenly the room's screens filled with information. Technical diagrams, energy equations, and device schematics flooded the displays. Dr. Mella, the space travel expert, was the first to understand what she was seeing. Her face went very pale. That's impossible. These energy output numbers can't be correct." "What are you seeing?" Korath demanded. "Fusion reactors the size of briefcases that produce more power than our largest space stations. Quantum computers that operate in 17 dimensions at once. Gravity manipulation devices that treat massive objects like toys." Dr. Vasquez nodded. "Those are some of our basic technologies. Would you like to see something more advanced?" Before anyone could answer, she showed them new diagrams. These were for medical devices that could regrow entire organs in minutes. Machines that could turn any element into any other element. Ships that could exist in multiple places at the same time. The hegemony's representative, Zixtal, was staring at the screens with his mouth open. "This level of technology, it would take our civilization millions of years to develop these things, if they're even possible." "Oh, they're quite possible," Dr. Vasquez said cheerfully. "In fact, let me show you our crowning achievement." The new diagram showed something that made the entire room go silent. It was a medical device, but unlike anything any of them had ever imagined. "We call it Project Lazarus," Dr. Vasquez explained. "This device can bring back the dead. Not just healing fatal injuries, actual resurrection of deceased individuals. We solved death itself about 30 years ago." The floating brain creature from earlier made a sound like a computer crashing. The spider-like alien's 8 hands were shaking. Even Admiral Korath looked like he might faint. Death was the one universal constant in the galaxy. Every species, no matter how advanced, eventually died. It was the one problem that no one had been able to solve. Advanced species could extend life for thousands of years, but everyone eventually died, except apparently humans. "This must be some kind of joke," whispered the Vegan representative. Dr. Vasquez's expression became more serious. "I assure you, we don't joke about death. We've had too much experience with it throughout our history. That's exactly why we were motivated to solve it." She showed them more data. Test results, medical scans, video recordings of the resurrection, process working on various Earth animals, and then on humans who had volunteered for the experiments. "The process is completely safe and can be performed up to 72 hours after death. After that, the neural pathways become too degraded, even for our technology." Zixtal finally found his voice. How is this possible? Our greatest medical experts have been working on life extension for millions of years." "Different approach," Dr. Vasquez said simply. "Most species try to prevent death by avoiding damage. We decided to accept that damage happens and focus on fixing it afterward. It's the difference between building a wall to stop a flood and learning to swim," Admiral Korath was looking at the military applications of the technology. Soldiers who cannot permanently die. Warriors who can return from any battle. Actually, Admiral, we don't use it for military purposes, Captain Chen said, rejoining the conversation. We found that once people stop being afraid of death, they become much less interested in fighting. The room was completely silent except for the humming of the ventilation systems. The representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were trying to process what they had just learned. The species they had been laughing at a few hours ago wasn't just advanced. They were so far beyond galactic civilization that the comparison was embarrassing. There's one more thing, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. Everything I've shown you today represents our basic, civilian technology. The things we teach to children in our universities. Our actual advanced capabilities remain classified. And with that statement, the Galactic Council realized that everything they thought they knew about the universe had just changed. 3 weeks after the shocking revelation about human technology, Admiral Korath made a decision that would change galactic history. The Krodan Empire, proud rulers of half the known galaxy, issued a formal challenge to Earth. It's a matter of military honor, Korath explained to his officers aboard the massive warship Eternal Victory. The ship was 5 kilometers long and packed with enough weapons to destroy entire solar systems. It was the pride of the Krodan fleet. Sir, are you sure this is wise? Asked Commander Vach, his second-in-command. The humans have shown some impressive technology. Korath's gray skin darkened with anger. Commander, the Krodans have been the galaxy's military leaders for 3 million years. We have fought wars against every species imaginable. We have defeated enemies with technology far superior to ours through superior tactics and courage. These humans may have fancy gadgets, but they have no military experience against galactic-level threats. It was true that humans had spent most of their history fighting each other rather than alien enemies. From the Krodan perspective, this made them amateurs at real warfare. Besides, Korath continued, this is just a training exercise. We'll show them how real space combat works, and then we can begin teaching them proper military doctrine. The challenge was simple. 1 Krodan dreadnought against Earth's entire space fleet. The humans had 12 ships total, according to the intelligence reports. The exercise would take place in neutral space, with observers from all major galactic powers watching. On Earth, the challenge was received with interest rather than concern. Commander Marcus Rodriguez, a quiet man with gray hair and thoughtful eyes, was chosen to lead the human squadron. Rodriguez had spent 30 years in Earth's military, from the old wars on the planet's surface to the new conflicts in space. 12 ships against 1, Rodriguez said to his staff in the briefing room. They're trying to make it fair for themselves. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim looked at the tactical display showing the Krodan dreadnought. Sir, that ship outweighs our entire fleet combined. Their main gun could probably destroy 3 of our ships with 1 shot. Rodriguez smiled. Lieutenant Commander, you're thinking like the Krodans want you to think. Big ship, big guns, direct confrontation, that's not how humans fight. He pulled up displays showing human military history, ancient battles where small forces defeated massive armies through clever tactics, naval battles where speed and maneuverability beat heavy armor, air combat where innovation overcame overwhelming numbers. Humans have always been good at asymmetric warfare, Rodriguez explained. We fight smart, not hard. The Krodans are expecting a conventional space battle. Let's give them something completely different. The human ships that gathered for the exercise didn't look impressive to galactic standards. They were smaller and sleeker than most alien vessels, with smooth curves instead of the angular, aggressive shapes favored by military designers. Each ship was only about 200 meters long, tiny compared to the 5-kilometer Krodan dreadnought. But appearances could be deceiving. The exercise took place in the neutral zone between Krodan and hegemony space. Observers from dozens of species gathered on special viewing platforms to watch what they expected would be a quick demonstration of Krodan military superiority. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of Eternal Victory, feeling confident. His sensors showed the 12 human ships approaching in a loose formation. They were moving slowly, almost casually. Human vessels, "This is Admiral Korath of the Crodon Empire," he transmitted. "Are you ready to begin the exercise?" "Ready when you are, Admiral," came the calm reply from Commander Rodriguez. "Begin exercise." Now, Korath expected the humans to either charge forward in a desperate attack or try to stay at long range and use their speed to avoid his massive guns. Instead, they did something completely unexpected. They disappeared. "What?" Korath stared at his sensor displays. One moment the human ships were there, the next moment they were gone. Not destroyed, simply gone. "Sir, sensors show no trace of the human vessels," reported his tactical officer. "That's impossible. Ships can't just vanish." But the humans hadn't vanished. They had shifted slightly out of normal space-time, moving into what they called shadow dimension. From this position, they could see and target enemies in normal space, but couldn't be detected or hit by conventional weapons. Rodriguez watched the Crodon ship from his position between dimensions. "All ships, execute Pattern 7. The 12 human vessels moved into position around the massive Crodon dreadnought. They were like sharks circling a whale, invisible and deadly. "Now," Rodriguez ordered. The humans reappeared in normal space, but not where Korath expected. Instead of being in front of his ship where his main guns could target them, they materialized above, below, and to the sides of Eternal Victory. The Crodon ship found itself completely surrounded. But the real surprise came when the humans opened fire. Their weapons didn't work like normal space combat systems. Instead of energy beams or projectile weapons, the humans used dimensional disruptors that attacked from directions that didn't exist in normal three-dimensional space. The Crodon shields, designed to stop attacks from conventional directions, were useless. In 30 seconds, Eternal Victory's shields collapsed completely. "Impossible," Korath shouted. "Our shields were designed to withstand supernova-level energy attacks." "Sir, the human weapons aren't attacking our shields directly," his science officer reported. "They're somehow attacking the quantum foundations that the shields depend on." But the humans weren't done. Their next weapon was even more shocking. Instead of destroying the Crodon ship, they used neural disruptors that passed through the hull as if it weren't there and rendered the entire crew unconscious, Admiral. Korath had just enough time to realize what was happening before he too fell asleep. 4 minutes after the exercise began, it was over. The mighty Eternal Victory hung dead in space, its crew unconscious, but unharmed. The 12 human ships surrounded it like guard dogs protecting a sleeping giant. On the observation platforms, the representatives of galactic civilization watched in stunned silence. The species that had been making jokes about humans 3 weeks ago had just watched the galaxy's greatest military power defeated in less time than it took to drink a cup of coffee. Commander Rodriguez's voice broke the silence. "Admiral Korath, please respond when you're awake. The exercise is complete." It took another hour for the Crodon crew to wake up. When Korath finally came to, he found human medical teams aboard his ship, making sure everyone was okay. "How?" was all he could manage to say. Rodriguez, who had come aboard personally, looked apologetic. "I'm sorry about the neural disruptors, Admiral. We didn't want to actually hurt anyone. The unconsciousness effect wears off completely in a few hours with no side effects." "I don't understand how you did any of this," Korath said weakly. "Different approach to space combat," Rodriguez explained. "Most species try to build bigger, stronger ships. We decided to build smarter ships. It's the difference between using a hammer and using a scalpel." Dr. Vasquez appeared on the communication screen. "Admiral, I should probably mention that what you just experienced was a demonstration using our training-level military technology. Commander Rodriguez's ships were using systems that we teach to teenagers in our military academies." The words hit Korath like a physical blow. Training-level technology. If this was what human children learned in school, what could their actual military do? News of the engagement spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every species in known space had heard the same impossible story. The humans had defeated the Crodon Empire's greatest warship using tactics and technology that nobody understood. On 1,000 different worlds, military leaders looked at their fleets and realized They might as well be throwing rocks at stars. The species that everyone had laughed at just weeks before had revealed something terrifying. They weren't just more advanced than galactic civilization. They were so far beyond everyone else that the comparison was meaningless. And according to Dr. Vasquez, they were just getting started. The change in galactic civilization happened so fast that historians would later call it the Great Awakening. Within 6 months of the human military demonstration, everything that had defined interstellar politics for millions of years simply stopped working. The first major change came from the hegemony.
Ambassador Zixtal, the same alien who had been laughing at humans just months before, arrived at Earth's moon base with an offer that shocked everyone. "We want to give you our 3 most advanced star systems," he announced to Captain Chen,
who had been promoted to admiral and was now Earth's primary diplomatic representative. Admiral Chen sat across from Zixtal in a simple conference room that looked out at Earth's blue surface. The room was deliberately plain. Humans had learned that showing off their technology made aliens nervous. "That's very generous," Chen said carefully. "But we have to ask why." Zixtal's blue skin had lost much of its glow. He looked tired, maybe even defeated. "Because our scientists have spent the last 6 months trying to understand your basic fusion technology. The data you shared as a simple example represents advances that would take our civilization another 1,000,000 years to achieve. If we're lucky." He activated a holographic display showing hegemony research stations. "We've had our best minds working around the clock. They can't even figure out how your fusion reactors stay stable, much less how they produce so much energy from such small amounts of fuel." Chen nodded sympathetically. "Different approach to physics. We found that if you think of atomic particles as friends instead of enemies, they're much more willing to cooperate." Zixtal stared at her. "Friends? You're talking about subatomic particles as if they have feelings, don't they?" Chen asked with a small smile. "How do you know they don't? Have you ever asked them nicely to do what you want instead of forcing them?" The hegemony ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "In exchange for teaching us how to ask atoms politely, we offer you sovereignty over the Vega, Altair, and Proxima systems. Full control, no strings attached." Chen looked out at Earth. "We appreciate the offer, but we're not interested in ruling anyone. How about this instead? We'll teach your scientists our basic fusion principles, and in return, you help us establish cultural exchange programs." "Cultural exchange? We want to learn about your art, your music, your philosophy. Technology is useful, but culture is what makes life worth living." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Krodan Empire was dealing with its own crisis. Admiral Korath had returned home to find his entire military structure in chaos. The defeat by human forces had shattered the Krodans' confidence in their military superiority. "Sir, we have a problem," Commander Vok reported during an emergency meeting. "Half our officer corps is requesting transfers to civilian positions. They don't want to be soldiers anymore." Korath wasn't surprised. The Krodan military had been built on the idea that they were the galaxy's greatest warriors. Learning that they were essentially children playing with toy weapons compared to humans had broken something fundamental in their culture. "There's more, sir," Vok continued. "We're receiving reports from across the Empire. Planets that have been fighting each other for centuries are suddenly requesting peace talks. They're saying that if the mighty Krodans can be defeated in 4 minutes, their local conflicts seem pointless." Korath found himself thinking about something Commander Rodriguez had said during their post-battle discussion. The human had mentioned that once people stop being afraid of death, they become less interested in fighting. Maybe the same was true about military defeat. Once you realized you couldn't win through force, you had to find other solutions. "Send a message to Earth," Korath ordered. "Request a meeting with their military advisors. If we can't beat them, maybe we can learn from them." The response came back within hours. The humans were willing to send advisors, but not for military purposes. Instead, they offered to teach the Krodans about conflict resolution, diplomacy, and what they called peace-building technologies. When the human delegation arrived on the Krodan homeworld, they brought something completely unexpected: children. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Earth's expert on social psychology, led a group of human teenagers to demonstrate what they called natural conflict resolution. The young humans worked with young Crotons to solve problems through cooperation instead of competition. The key, Dr. Martinez explained to Korath, is teaching people to see conflict as a puzzle to solve together, rather than a war to win. Your species has incredible strategic thinking abilities. You just need to redirect them toward building things instead of destroying them. Within weeks, Croton military academies began teaching negotiation alongside tactics. Veterans of countless wars found themselves learning how to mediate disputes between planets instead of conquering them. The changes weren't limited to the major powers. Across the galaxy, smaller species were requesting human guidance on everything from agriculture to space travel. The Centauri Alliance asked for help with their dying star. Human scientists arrived with stellar engineering technology that could extend the star's life by millions of years. But they also brought philosophers who helped the Centaurians think about what they wanted to do with all that extra time. The insectoid hive minds from the Zeta Reticuli system requested assistance with individuality problems. Some of their workers were developing independent thoughts, which was causing chaos in their collective consciousness. Human psychologists helped them understand that individual thinking could strengthen the collective rather than weaken it. Even the mysterious energy beings from the galactic core sent communications asking about human spirituality. They had watched biological species for millions of years but had never seen any that seemed genuinely happy. They wanted to understand what humans had figured out that others hadn't. Admiral Chen found herself at the center of what was becoming known as the Human Intervention Protocol. The policy was simple. Earth wouldn't conquer or rule anyone. Instead, they would guide and teach. Any species that wanted help could ask for it, and humans would provide whatever assistance they could. The trick, Chen explained to her staff, during one of their regular planning meetings, is to help without taking over. We want these civilizations to grow and develop their own solutions, not just copy ours. Dr. Vasquez, who had become Earth's Minister of Galactic Relations, nodded in agreement. We've seen what happens when advanced civilizations try to rule less advanced ones. It never ends well for anyone. The human approach was working better than anyone had expected. Species that had been locked in warfare for millions of years were finding peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Planets that had been dying from pollution or resource depletion were learning sustainable technologies. Civilizations that had stagnated were suddenly bursting with new ideas and energy. But the most remarkable change was in how the galaxy species saw themselves. For the first time in recorded history, they began to believe that they could become something better than what they were. The former Galactic Council, which had been more of a debating society than a real government, transformed into the SOL, System Advisory Board. Representatives from dozens of species came to Earth not to make laws or declare wars, but to share ideas and learn from each other. Universities across the galaxy began requiring courses in human studies. Students learned about human history, philosophy, and problem-solving methods. The most popular courses were always the ones about human art and music. Perhaps most importantly, the endless cycle of galactic warfare that had defined interstellar civilization for millions of years simply stopped. Not because humans forced it to stop, but because it no longer made sense to anyone. As Admiral Chen stood in her office, looking out at the bustling traffic of alien ships around Earth's moon, she reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy was still full of different species with different ideas and different goals. But now they were working together instead of fighting each other. The species that everyone had dismissed as a joke had become the galaxy's teachers, and the lesson they taught was the most important one of all, that cooperation was always stronger than conquest. 5 years after first contact, Admiral Chen stood in the Galactic Coordination Center, watching something that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. Through the massive viewing windows that surrounded Earth's moon, she could see ships from hundreds of different species working together on the largest construction project in galactic history. They were building a new kind of space station, Not a military base or a trading post, but something the galaxy had never seen before. It was designed to be a place where any species could come to share knowledge, solve problems, and celebrate the diversity of galactic civilization. The Harmony Station should be completed next month, reported Dr. Vasquez, who had joined Chen at the observation deck. 47 different species contributed to the design, and another 112 are providing materials and labor. Chen smiled as she watched a massive Krodan construction ship carefully positioning a delicate crystalline structure created by the artists of Vega Prime. A year ago, the Krodans would have conquered Vega Prime. Now they were protecting vegan art installations. Any problems with the construction? Just the usual, Vasquez laughed. The Centaurians want to add more meditation gardens, the Zeta Reticulans think we need better collective meeting spaces, and the Andromedians are worried about security. But they're working it out through discussion instead of threats. It was a perfect example of how much the galaxy had changed. The species that had spent millions of years fighting each other were now debating the best way to build a space station together, and they were actually listening to each other's ideas. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. Dr. Vasquez had led what became known as the Great Uplift, a careful program of sharing human knowledge and helping other species advance at their own pace. The key was patience. Humans had learned from their own history that forcing change too quickly usually made things worse. "How's the education program going?" Chen asked. "Better than we hoped," Vasquez replied, pulling up a holographic display of statistics. "We now have human teachers working with over 300 species. But more importantly, we have teachers from 60 different species working in our own schools on Earth." That had been one of the biggest surprises. While aliens were eager to learn human science and technology, humans were equally eager to learn alien art, philosophy, and ways of thinking. Earth's universities had become incredibly diverse places where human students learned alongside beings from across the galaxy. "The music exchange program has been especially successful," Vasquez continued. "Human musicians working with Andromedan sound sculptors have created entirely new art forms. And don't get me started on what happens when human poets collaborate with hegemony emotion weavers." Chen nodded. The cultural exchanges had been as important as the technological ones. Humans had superior science, but other species had developed incredible achievements in art, philosophy, and social organization. By combining their strengths, all of galactic civilization was becoming richer. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The main display showed the face of someone Chen had never expected to see again, Admiral Korath. But this wasn't the same angry warrior who had challenged Earth 5 years ago. Korath looked peaceful, almost serene. His gray skin had a healthy color and his eyes showed curiosity instead of aggression. "Admiral Chen," Korath said, with what looked like a genuine smile. "I'm calling to give you an update on the Krodan Peace Corps." Chen grinned back. The idea of Krodan warriors becoming peacekeepers had seemed impossible, but it had worked brilliantly. The same strategic thinking that made Krodans excellent soldiers made them excellent mediators. "How many conflicts have you resolved this month, Admiral?" 17, Korath said proudly. 3 border disputes, 6 resource conflicts, 5 cultural misunderstandings, and 3 cases of what humans call hurt feelings. The hurt feelings were actually the hardest to solve. It was amazing to watch. The species that had once conquered half the galaxy through military force was now conquering problems through negotiation and understanding, and they were having more success than they had ever had with weapons. "There's something else," Korath continued. "The Krodan High Command has made a decision. We're officially disbanding our military and converting all our warships into exploration and construction vessels." Chen felt a moment of concern. "Are you sure that's wise? What if some hostile force appears?" Korath's expression became serious. "Admiral, in 5 years of working with humans, we've learned something important. There are no hostile forces, only misunderstood ones. Every species we've met that seemed aggressive was actually just scared or confused. Once we learned to communicate properly, the hostility disappeared. It was a profound change in thinking. The galaxy had spent millions of years assuming that conflict was inevitable, that some species were just naturally violent, but humans had proved that even the most warlike beings could learn to cooperate when they felt safe and understood. The communication ended, and Chen returned to watching the construction of Harmony Station. As she watched, she saw something that perfectly symbolized the new galaxy. A small ship containing a mixed crew of humans and former enemies working together to install a component that would help all species communicate better. "There's something I need to tell you," Vasquez said quietly. "We've been monitoring communications from the galaxy's edge. We're detecting signals from civilizations we've never met before. Species from beyond our local galactic cluster." Chen felt a familiar excitement. "How many?" "Preliminary estimates suggest hundreds, maybe thousands of different civilizations. They've been watching our transformation with great interest." "Are they friendly?" Vasquez smiled. "They're asking if they can join our galactic community. Apparently, word has spread that we've figured out how to have civilization without constant warfare. They want to learn how we did it." Chen looked out at the bustling activity around Earth's moon. Ships from dozens of species moved in perfect harmony, working toward common goals instead of fighting over differences. The space around Earth had become the galaxy's center, not because humans had conquered it, but because they had made it a place where everyone was welcome. "You know what's funny?" Chen said. 5 years ago, we were the species everyone laughed at. Now we're the species everyone wants to learn from." "It's not that funny," Vasquez replied thoughtfully. "I think the galaxy was ready for what we offered. They were just waiting for someone to show them that cooperation was possible." As if to prove her point, a new ship appeared in the traffic pattern around the moon. It was unlike anything Chen had seen before, all flowing curves and shimmering colors. The communication board lit up with a translation request. "This is Ambassador Melody of the Whirlpool Galaxy Collective," came a voice that sounded like music. "We've traveled a very long distance to meet the humans who taught the galaxy to sing in harmony, instead of screaming in discord." Chen activated the communication system. "This is Admiral Chen of Earth. Welcome to our solar system, Ambassador Melody. We're honored to meet you." "The honor is ours, Admiral. We bring greetings from 47 different galactic clusters. They're all very interested in learning about your human doctrine of peaceful civilization." Chen looked at Vasquez, who was grinning widely. The human doctrine had become the galaxy's informal name for the idea that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that diversity made civilizations stronger rather than weaker, and that the best way to solve problems was to work together rather than fight about them. "We'd be happy to share what we've learned," Chen replied. "But I should warn you, we're still learning ourselves. Every day we discover new ways to work together better." "That's exactly what we hope to hear," Ambassador Melody said. "A species that thinks they know everything has stopped growing. A species that keeps learning can become anything." As the day ended and Earth's sun set behind the planet, Chen reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. The species that everyone had dismissed as backward savages had become the galaxy's teachers. But the real lesson wasn't about human superiority. It was about the incredible things that became possible when different beings worked together instead of fighting each other. The galaxy had finally grown up, and it had taken the species everyone thought was a joke to show them how. In the distance, construction continued on Harmony Station. When it was completed, it would be a symbol of everything the galaxy had become: diverse, cooperative, and filled with infinite possibilities. But Chen knew it was just the beginning. With thousands of new civilizations asking to join their community, the adventure was just getting started. The galaxy was no longer a place of endless war and competition. It had become something better, a place where every species could contribute their unique gifts to the greater good of all. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet, where the beings who had once been the galaxy's biggest joke had become its greatest hope.